Hey gamers, we're back with another episode of Let's Create a Competitive Card Game. In this episode, we will be continuing with some card creation. So let's get started. Okay, so last episode we went ahead and started a spreadsheet for the cards of the first set. So I'll go ahead and open that up. Now, we did mention that the first set would be 90 cards, so I did go ahead and fill out 90 spots here. And last episode, we went ahead and came up with the class cards. So we came up with their status/class and their effects. And also, we mentioned that in the future, a cost-benefit analysis would be done, at which point we would assign things like life, attack, defense, and cost. So for now, with card creation, I will only be assigning effects. So the class cards we came up with, the effects for last episode were for the Warrior, Magician, and Cleric. Now, remember, these class cards have something called a will, which is auto-activated at some threshold, and it can only activate once per turn. So for the Warrior, the will was that at 10 life or less, the warriors you control would have their attack doubled. For the Magician, it was 10 life or less, your opponent would have to bounce cards into a control the same amount of cards that you control. And then for Clerics, it was that 10 life or less, you cannot lose the game that turn. And at the end of that turn, you would immediately regain 6 life. Now, something else to mention is that the class card will say what cards will follow that card. So as you can see here for the Cleric, it says that only blue Clerics will follow this card. And speaking of blue, if you look over at the guilds, you'll see that I went ahead and changed from the red, yellow, blue, and actually put the name of the guild. So red will be power, yellow will be mind, and blue will be the life guild from now on. So again, for Cleric, it says that only blue Clerics will follow this card. So it should say that only life Clerics will follow this card. So if you go down to the followers, you'll see that the followers are associated with some guild. So either mind, life, or power. Now, this doesn't mean that you can only use these cards in this specific guild. It just means that they will only follow a class or captain if it says their guild on there and also their class type. So what I want to do today is go ahead and maybe create a few more cards. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And actually, before we start with actually creating cards, I should mention this new art description section here. So I did speak with the artist, and first I should mention that the artist is a she, not a he. I do recall last episode I continued to say he, but it is a Polish female, or a female from Polish, or Polish, I'm not sure the right way to say that, but she is a she, not a he. So what art description is whenever I come up with a card effect, I'll put down a description of how I see in my mind the art looking on that card. And from this art description, the artist will draw 3 concepts. So with that out the way, let's go ahead and start with some of the cards. So I'm actually going to start with the relics, not the companions, as a lot more will go into creating the companions than all the other cards. And something else to mention is if you see an empty guild, that just means that this card can be used in any guild. It's not tied to a specific guild. Now when it does come to, say, relics, talents, and skill, the guild here means that you can only use this card if your class card is of that guild. So it doesn't matter what the class type is, as long as the guild is the same. So say there was let's say a power cleric. You could not use a life relic, even though it is a cleric, because the class card is power. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with some of the effects. Now, I do have a couple effects in mind. So the first effect for the very first relic is going to be a prevention effect. So the very first relic, the effect will be prevents, let's say, prevents other players from playing relics. Or no, let's give it a more, let's give it a better effect. Let's say, or better wording. Let's say that players may not play relics. And then for the art description, I don't really have an idea in mind yet, so I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make the effects and then come back to the descriptions, as I do have a pretty good idea of what I want the effects to be for the first couple relics. So for the next relic, I do want to utilize floating in the first set. So we'll say something like provides a floating, let's say, skill point on your turn. So let's say provides, let's say, one float. And I'll just abbreviate SP for now. And really, I shouldn't abbreviate this, as this may be used to actually fill in the words on the cards, the actual cards. And then for the next relic, I want to use the link keyword. So there's a card like this in almost every card game, and what that will be is it will say link and it'll say negate this card's effects or abilities. I'm not sure if I'm going to call them effects or abilities yet, so I'm just going to put them both for now. And then this will be the last card that I will create for this episode. And I did sort of think of this a lot, and what I sort of came up with was something like, essentially at the start of every turn, the player can gain an ability, or sorry, a talent point or a skill point. So instead of gaining, I want this card to say something like, at the start of a player's turn, they have to lose a skill point or talent point. And I can just say ability point, as ability point covers both skill and talent points. So let's say just that. Let's say at the start of a player's turn, let's say instead of gaining an ability point, let's say that player loses an ability point. And just by hearing that and kind of reading this is, there might need to be some other type of drawbacks to this card, as this could be potentially OP. So yeah, might have to come back and modify this effect. But remember, we're not really worrying about balancing the game yet, as we will do a cost-benefit analysis first, and then balance the game based on some of these effects. Or not really balance the game, we'll balance the cost based on the effects, which will also give us any attack, defense, life, etc. So now let's go ahead and come up with some descriptions for these cards. So for players may not play relics, what I have in my mind is maybe a large tower in a field with streaks of, let's say, light going up to the sky, symbolizing relics just disappearing. Yeah, so let's say something like that. So how should I word this? Let me say idea is a large tower in a field. The idea is a large tower in a field with, let's say, streaks of light. Streaks of light going into the sky. And let's say, I'm picturing something like some scorched earth where every streak of light hits the ground. So maybe let's say something like should be scorched earth where light touches the ground. So this one should be okay. One second. All right, now for, let's say, provides one floating skill point. So what I'm thinking about this is maybe there's some bracelet or something that you wear that provides this. Let me think. Okay, I have an idea. Let's say this should be a, let's say, regal looking bracelet with a golden glow. And let's maybe say, maybe it's sitting in the field and people are training. And for the next one, let's see, it negates the effects of abilities. So, so the thing is, why would, I'm kind of thinking, why would someone pick this up? So, okay, I have an idea. Let's say something like, let's say a mannequin in a window. Let's say wearing like a regal hood, let's say curse looking jacket. Alright, and for this one, right, let's see, start of a player's turn, instead of gaining ability or skill points, they lose them. So this is a very interesting one. Let's say, yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So instead of gaining ability points, and this affects both players. So I'm thinking of something like a scene of chaos and destruction. Yeah, a scene of chaos and destruction with lots of different, let's say, races and classes. And we'll say something like all fighting. And this is a relic, so relics are items. Let's say there should be like a glowing, let's say glowing item in the somewhere in the scene. Alright, so yeah, I think these are fairly good, and this is what I'll give to the artist, and I'll see if maybe she has some more specific direction on these art descriptions, as these are, I don't want to say generic, but my idea of a large tower in a field with streaks of light going into the sky could be completely different than the artist's idea. Now, I've seen this artist's work and I do like it, so I really want the artist just to do their vision, as I'm sure I would like it. So yeah, this will be all of the cards that we create for this episode, and I think what I'm going to do going forward is maybe start a new playlist with card creation, as what I want to do is, as I create a card, I do want to show the whole art process. So the process of the artist sending me the concept, me say choosing a concept, the artist doing the 2 or 3 revisions, and then coming up with the final art. So I do want to show that entire process. However, I don't think that process should really be shown in this specific playlist. So maybe a playlist itself about all of the cards and the art would be a little bit better. So yeah, with that said, I do have some concepts from the artist, as I talked to her last week and I told her for the warrior, magician, and cleric, I mentioned that they should just be generic warriors, magicians, clerics, and for the magician I had to send her some pictures of what I thought a magician looked like, and also for the cleric and warrior. So I'll go ahead and switch over to those concepts. So 1 second. Alright, so these are the concepts for the cleric. So as I mentioned, she will draw 3 different concepts, and I will pick the one I like the most, and then she will do revisions on that. And if I don't like any of them, then I can kind of tweak the art description or get for more info on my idea. So from these 3 concepts, I've had a chance to look at these obviously, but I do like number 3 the most, as a cleric is a healer, and it does seem like there will be some type of healing going on here. Now, I do like this idea. I'm not too much of a fan of this one, but I do like this one. However, with my idea of a cleric, this goes more with clerics. So I'll go ahead and switch over to the next one. Alright, so these are the concepts for the magician, and really the only one I like is the one that specifically says disappearing bird. I do want to see how the artist is going to draw a bird disappearing, and also that's kind of what magicians do. They bounce things or make things disappear. Now, also I see here there's a number here, like magician number 10. So don't really think or look too much into these numbers, as I did tell the artist that there would be 6 classes, and I gave the artist a list of the classes, and I think she just kind of put the numbers here based on, I'm not sure what, honestly. So anyway, this is the magician. I'll go ahead and move over to the next class. Alright, so this is the concept for the warrior, and honestly, I'm thinking I like number 2 and number 3 the most. I'm not really a fan of this first one, and between these 2, I think I like 2 the most, as I really want to see how the artist is going to draw this. And also, is this guy standing on a rock, or what is his foot on? So yeah, I think I'll tell the artist number 2 for this one. Okay, so I do have one more concept, and it is the concept that the artist drew for the guilds. So I told the artist the guilds were power, life, and mind, and she drew some concepts. So I'll go ahead and switch over to those. Alright, so these are the concepts for the guilds. Now, the artist, she was trying to figure out a color palette for each of the guilds. So this is kind of what she came up with. And this was her interpretation of power, of life, and of mind. And this is a pyromancer, as like I said, I did give the artist about 6 different class types, so 2 for each. And one of the ones I did give for life was pyromancer, as when I was thinking of having a 300 card set, pyromancer was in there, and also a necromancer. So she did use the pyromancer and the necromancer. So these are the concepts she drew, and honestly I like these concepts a lot. And she did put factions concepts here, as I told her they were factions, and I didn't really want to give the artist too much info on the game, though she may watch the playlist at some point in the future. So yeah, I'll go ahead and switch back over to the document. Alright, so we're back in the spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and it should populate within the OneNote. Alright, so yeah, it has populated in OneNote, so this is good. So again, this is where I'm going to stop for this episode, and in the next episode I think what I'm going to do is make a artist primer, as that is something that the artist asked for. And what that is essentially for all of the card types, she wants to know how the art should look, as she did mention that she is used to games where there's only one picture on a card, like a lot of the card games out. However, I told her that some of the cards may have, or I may want more than one character on the card. So something like the spoils, where the art had a lot going on in the image. So that's what I'll do next episode. I'll make a primer. So if you like this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff. Thanks.